Mark, Mark, that looked like about a half an ounce, maybe a third of an ounce.
Well, I don't like pouring it all the way to the top. I just don't.
I'm just
Why?
I just like the tip. I
Oh,
don't like the whole thing.
just the
I
tip.
don't go-
But I do have my doily, and we're recording an hour earlier,
2 hours
So-
earlier, by the way.
which means I have to start drinking earlier than normal, and I don't really like drinking this early, Scott. So anyway, thanks.
you know you don't have to drink when we do this, right?
Are
It's
you
not like-
drinking?
Yeah, but I was going to do that anyways.
Josh,
So
are you
bad.
drinking? I just want to thank Josh for buying me chicken wings and cheese sticks last night. He bought me hot chicken wings and cheese sticks,
You're welcome.
and it was pretty
That's
glorious.
pretty sweet. That's
Well,
very
I
sweet.
told him during dinner while we were eating that I know people. I work with 2 or 3 people, and this just blows my mind. I don't know if I've told you guys this before. Josh just heard it last night. I work with 2 or 3 people that spend $750 a month on DoorDash.
Jesus Christ.
They're
That's insane.
all under 30. And they all complain at the end of the month when their electric bill comes due. They get their $125 electric bill and wonder where the money's going to come from. And of course, I don't say anything. It's just like, but like literally, like one of the one girl said about 2 months ago, she said, "Oh, I can't believe that my DoorDash bill is over $725 already."
It's fucking crazy.
And this is, I don't know if that counts for like, it really doesn't make any difference to me because it's an insane amount of money to spend on DoorDash per month anyway, unless you're rich. And if you were rich, like, why would you be spending it on DoorDash food? Like, why would you like be eating out at the best restaurants that that money can buy? So it makes 0 sense anyway you cut it. And I wanted to say, is that because you order 2 meals at work 5 days a week, or does that include like other food that you order while you're at home?
I bet that's 2 meals a day. I bet that's 2 meals a day with that kind of price tag.
But like, she ordered like, a Five Guys burger, something else, and a shake, and it was like $26 plus. And that's like, and sometimes she orders a meal equivalent to about that amount twice a day, which is $50 to $60 a day. And
Dude, you could go to the grocery and get a meal's worth or a whole week's worth for about $60. But what I want to know, Mark, is did you sleep with Josh to thank him for the meal last night?
Just the tip.
it was, I gave him an in-kind campaign contribution.
Ooh, sounds fancy. You want to do the welcome to
Reckoning Brothers, everybody, where we mock hypocrisy and insult petty tyrants.
You got it right. Nice.
Right. You think, it took me long enough, right? Like I'm the one that came up with that slogan in my fucking dementia, my dementia-filled, like...
Brain?
Yeah,
Brain is a word you don't know.
the fucking brain rot that I've got. I think it's because of brain. I think it's because of brain overload. Because like the work that I do, I'm just like, God damn.
Well, and the play that you do is heavily involved in culture war stuff.
I do piss in the tall grass with the big dogs.
Sure. Mark, it's your turn. We alternate topics. I was excited about your topic. Do you want to explain what it is?
Yeah. So let me just
breathe in the microphone really heavy, so I have to edit that out. Is that what you needed to do? Like, oh God.
Where do I light up a?
Oh, that's going to make it better. That's really going to the cigarettes. Yeah,
he'll hack a few times there.
It's really going to help.
Is the United States morally obligated to provide tens and tens of billions of dollars in humanitarian assistance to countries that hate us? I'm going to expand on that a little bit because I think there are provisos and exceptions, and we can talk about those. Generally, what I want to exclude from that question is disaster relief from natural disasters, natural and man-made disasters, wherein and whereas the United States has always, or for many, many years, many decades, been the first country there with a shitload of hospital ships, rescue workers, rescue dogs, helicopters with food, medicine, water, doctors, the armada that shows up off the shores of a country that has just experienced a tsunami or a hurricane or a volcano or a nuclear facility meltdown. From the United
States. Is it true we're the only country, we have two gigantic hospital ships? I think we're the only country with those types of ships, correct?
We have way more than two.
I think there's a certain class of enormous hospital ship that we have.
It's the USS Comfort. So I thought it was a Red Cross, though. Is it American or?
No.
Well, if it's Red Cross, who's flipping the bill?
We pay for it. We pay for it. And the hospital ships also include our surface vessels in the United States Navy. I mean, they show up by, the
Can I give kind of a just the tip beginning an answer to your question?
Sure.
My initial reaction is no, we're not obligated to give money to those that hate us. But as I think about it, I think, we live in a world, not only a trade-off, but of second and third order effects to everything we do too, right? So I could see there being a second order effect advantage to the United States for giving money or providing aid to places that hate us.
I agree.
Makes them more tranquil or something like that. The reason I thought of that is as someone, I'd never really thought of this, but someone, to bring it back to Israel, let's just skip over this real quick, but someone mentioned Israel and are giving them aid, military aid. And the second order effect of that is it makes it so that Israel has to buy from us and also clue us into all of their military intelligence, right? That's a second order effect that provides a lot of value to the United States, where if you didn't look into this, you wouldn't think of it initially, but it's still extremely valuable.
Yeah, and I think another good example of that is President Bush's AIDS has an acronym for it, the AIDS program to Africa. And we've spent an enormous amount of money, billions upon billions of dollars, for medications, for HIV medications to quell the spread of AIDS on the continent of Africa. And we can get into that a little bit. So,
I'm sorry, one more quick thing. I would also say that in most countries, the general populace, even if they hate us, a lot of them are victims of circumstance and propaganda to such a degree where it's hard for me to hate the general public. And sorry, that's it.
Yeah, and one has to delineate between the government that hates us and the people that may not necessarily hate us.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, and if they got to know us, they might kind of like us. I mean, we have football, bunch of other shit.
Right. In the last 25 years, the United States has provided over $1 trillion in humanitarian assistance to foreign countries. A lot of that money gets wasted. A lot of it goes to countries that hate us. a lot of it goes to NGOs and United Nations organizations, where corruption ends up drying up the resources that we're sending. Afghanistan, North Korea. Now, we don't send any money to North Korea anymore, but we did for many, many years. We've sent over $1 billion to North Korea, and I forget what year it was cut off, and I'll look at my notes here in a moment and tell you what it was. It seems outrageous to me that we ever gave a dime to North Korea, because we were at war with them. President Eisenhower threatened them with nuclear annihilation to get them to sign the armistice, which ended the war. And that government and the people of that government and the people that live in that country hate the United States, and that we ever gave them any assistance was let North Korea get whatever humanitarian assistance it wants from China, or whatever it needs from China, from its allies.
Would it be fair to say a country like North Korea, if we give them humanitarian aid, there's a pretty small chance that that's really going to get down to the people?
Correct.
Would that make sense? So even if it was a country that hated us, that had a more functional government, it would make more sense to give them some humanitarian aid, because it might actually get to the people that need it.
Yeah, and a perfect example of what I mentioned earlier about money that we give the United Nations and NGOs. For example, the Biden administration gave taxpayer dollars to UNIRWA, which is the United Nations International blah robble robble relief fund for people, despite concerns that funds were being diverted to support terrorist activities. I forget how much money. Between 2022 and 2023, the United States donated $700 million to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. But we now know that a Hamas compound was located under the United Nations Relief and Works Agency building, and Hamas was getting a huge portion of that money. So there's all kinds of, just really unforgivable things that have been done with the American taxpayers' money. And I don't think I want to put it this way. If a politician in the United States, if a congressman in the United States went around bragging about how much money they got appropriated to foreign governments or to relief agencies that are supposedly helping foreign countries, they never get elected to anything, right? If you were bragging about how much money you were, about how many billions of dollars, you're not talking to your constituents, the hardworking people that live in your district that are already paying, somewhere between 22 and 35% of they're already working for the government 4 months out of the year. And you went and briefed them on, talked to them about how many billions of dollars you got sent overseas, especially to a government or a country like Afghanistan. You never get elected. Like, you might get elected in the most far left districts in the country. You might get elected in certain areas of New York. You might get elected in a congressional district in the city you're in, Scott, in Los Angeles. You might get elected in Berkeley, San Francisco, but you're not going to get elected in Kansas City, Cincinnati, Chicago, San Antonio. You're not going to get elected in any congressional district in the country if that's what you were. If
even in super blue cities, though, a lot of people would make the argument of, yes, you need to spend this money, but you need to spend it here. And even a lot of far lefties make that argument still. I just want to say one thing about Doge, right? Doge was one of the first times where people really started to understand. One of the good things that came out of it was like pointing the finger at USAID and how they spend their money, right? I always thought that when people complained about Doge and pointing the finger at USAID, they always said, "Oh, you're taking money out of the mouths of poor people." Da 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 da. When really, Doge was just saying that you're not spending the money wisely. It's not getting to these poor people. But Is it a fair argument to make that USAID and organizations like that are actually just promoting American soft power? And soft power is important. It's an important political tool. And even though it might be kind of fucked up, it still is important for us to use these tools and all these weird little fucking corrupt levers to promote our power and exert our influence around the world.
I think you're right about that, but I also think some of the things that Doge uncovered are insane.
Yeah, it was insane. Like the amount of money that was going to NGOs and the salaries of the people that worked at NGOs was incredible.
Yeah,
it was insane.
That was unforgivable. It was unforgivable. Yeah, yeah.
So the United States
profit if you want to make that kind of money.
The United States obligated.
Soft power, though. That is probably what is projecting that.
Well, that's the argument that I thought that the anti-Doge people should have made, but I didn't hear them make that. They made the stupid little appeal to emotion. Oh, you're taking money, you're taking food out people's mouths. Well,
you're killing people.
Because if you did this better, you could have put actual food into these people's mouths.
Yes, and you had adjunct professors in Boston who were coming up with, what they said was, well-researched data that showed that, it was going to kill 20 million people in Africa, and 10 million people in Asia, et cetera, et cetera. Turned out all their, the data that they were using was, skewed, debunked, et cetera. But they got their headlines.
People would not cherry pick data to support their conclusions.
Yeah, they got their headlines. They got quoted in every major newspaper in the country. And as we all know, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets a chance to put its pants on. So they convinced a lot of people that was the case. The United States, so there's been quite a bit of the good news lately. As a matter of fact, the United States obligated $755 million to Afghanistan for fiscal year 2024. In early 2025, the United States suspended nearly all of it, with reported cuts over $1.7 billion for this year, effectively terminating USAID programs and humanitarian assistance. And that was because of Secretary Rubio, who was saying it's insane to send money to a government to a country run by a government as corrupt as the Taliban.
Be quiet. I think it's one of those things where you pick your battles. Like that I understand. I wouldn't send money. There doesn't need to be a $40 million bailout for Iran or $400 million bailout. What was that before? Right?
Well,
administration.
Well, some of that was were assets that were frozen that we unfroze, and it was an ungodly amount of money, and it was it was big.
The whole point that I'm trying to make is that we need to, you said delineate earlier, the different types of aid, and we are the only superpower left. This is how our superpower should behave, and we need to pick and choose instead of the insane things.
Yeah, it should be done intelligently.
We feed our enemies money.
And for those,
like what?
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Mark,
Scott.
No, you basically further cemented my point about North Korea when you were talking about Hamas. Money goes to Palestine, it just goes to Hamas, and they just use it for bad shit. Like, can we just have I know we can't because the government sucks, but it would be nice if we had a little review of how we're spending this money, and so it gets put to places that actually help out a normal person that's really just trying to make it. We're never going to have that.
Review. Yes.
Yeah. People are just going to be emotionally pulled by bullshit without thinking about things for more than 10 seconds.
Now that we've agreed that, we should send humanitarian assistance to countries that aid us in various different forms and with restrictions, and some sort of guarantee that money is going to get to whom it's intended. I want to make a counter argument, which is we've spent $1 trillion. And just to be clear here, I'm talking about humanitarian assistance because people get the two things confused. In total assistance, when you include military, so military assistance accounts for somewhere between 10 and 20% of foreign aid that we provide. And I'm purposely distinguishing between military assistance to allies and humanitarian assistance to allies, acquaintances, and enemies. So my counter argument would be, and I think you can make it, is that no, the United States has no moral obligation to send money to any country. When you look at the amount, so we've spent $1 trillion in humanitarian assistance in 25 years, and what has it gotten us? It didn't get us peace in Ukraine. It didn't get us peace in the Middle East. It didn't stop the tribal wars in Africa. It didn't stop the cross-border wars in Southeast Asia. It didn't stop North Korea from developing more intercontinental ballistic missiles. It didn't stop Venezuela from enslaving its population until recently when
I yield my time to Josh.
Yeah.
What did it stop that we don't know about?
I'm sorry?
There's the counterfactual argument too. There could be something that would have happened had we not intervened and gave money to people too. We don't really know.
There's TikToks or shorts or something like this. It's like the making of a villain, and you see like them zooming in on someone, and you see something bad happening to him, and then you realize at that point he's going to be a villain, a bad guy, a mass murderer, or whatever. That how do we know something didn't happen good from that money we sent somewhere to put somebody on the right path to change a congregational mindset? I don't know.
It's like if money we gave would have made it so Hitler could have gotten into art school. So we don't know. We don't know what it's a whole counterfactual thing. You can't know this stuff. So it's really that, and that's why morality discussions are so complicated. I get what you're saying, though. I get what both of you are saying. It makes perfect sense. The argument of we're not morally obligated makes sense because we don't have infinite money, and we are the last superpower, but we're not the only fucking organization that creates wealth on the planet. Why should it always come down to us? And especially when everybody just like, oh, well, fuck you, America, you suck so bad. And what'd you say, 20 years, $1 trillion worth of humanitarian aid?
$1 trillion.
What are those stats again, Mark?
$1 trillion. Yeah, $1 trillion.
Over how
$1
many
trillion
years?
since 2000.
2000, okay.
$1 trillion is just an enormous amount of money. So it basically averaged out to about $50 billion a year. Some years it's higher, some years it's lower. Recently it's gone lower. We've trimmed the Cheeto administration has trimmed foreign assistance from about 55 billion to about 38 billion, something like that. But it's basically, to round the numbers out, it's been about $50 billion for 20 years, which is $1 trillion. And I'm just wondering, so to back to the moral argument, the moral obligation, for time immemorial, the basic standard was charity begins at home. Correct?
Correct.
The charity begins at home. Now, if charity begins at home, if we take that as the premise, and the United States had not gone into debt in any single year between the year 2000 and now, let's say we'd ran a surplus, right? Let's say we'd run $100 billion surplus every year since then. Then of course you could make a better argument that providing humanitarian assistance to over 100 countries would make sense because we've got extra money, we've taken care of everything at home. Um, we, we run a surplus. Ergo, we've got money to spend on charity elsewhere. But we've never reached that point. I mean, well, I say never. We haven't reached that point in ages. Like, we're $8 trillion in debt now.
Solid point.
$8 trillion.
Not only does charity start at home, but we also need to just fucking clean up our own house, clean our room. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. What did we talk about last week? 1% to 2% of the GDP is the equivalent amount that the government has of waste, fraud, and abuse. About 1% to 2%.
I looked those numbers up again today, and it's the General Accounting Office, which is nonpartisan. It's not, it's not staffed by conservatives or liberals. It is considered the gold standard data. The gold standard database accounting office for the United States government, and we waste somewhere between $255 and $540 billion a year. Now, with the news that we've run into in the last year or so, I think we conclude it's vastly more than that. I mean, the fraud that they uncovered in Minnesota, the fraud that they're currently uncovering in California, it would lend one to the notion that it's way more than 255 billion or even 500 billion. I think the conservative estimate now probably is about $1 trillion. Yeah.
So if you cut that number down to $1 billion a year waste, fraud, and abuse, I think you'd be way more okay with giving humanitarian aid out to those countries that hate us.
Yeah, exactly. Or any country for that matter. Or any country. Now, are we morally obligated to provide aid that helps protect American interests, as in the money we give to the military assistance that we give to Israel? Yeah, that's a moral obligation. I think it's a moral obligation. I think it's a moral obligation to provide money to NATO. I've said something, or I've said this to people that I know and the people online many times, especially Europeans, when they're just doing nothing but kicking America and talking down about the United States and how bad we are and how awful we are, and and I didn't say it today. I wanted to, and it was a European person who said, I forget what context they were saying how bad we were, and my answer to Europeans that want to constantly dog the United States is, as soon as Europe can go 100 years without slaughtering 50 million of its own people and not need the United States to come over there and put a stop to it, then I think you've got license to lecture the United States. But you haven't been able to do that. You have Europe's in another war right now. Ukraine is in Europe.
Yeah.
Europe lost 50 million. Europe slaughtered 50 million of its own people in World War II. And we had to come over there and put a stop to it. Please don't lecture us about morality or whether we're bad, or lecture us about the fact that we have a Second Amendment and own guns. Don't lecture us about our dirty cities or our architecture or whatever it is about the United States that bothers you.
They got us beat on architecture. They got us beat on architecture. It's just
that is true. Yeah, that is true.
Facts.
So, Mark, you said don't give money to NATO or give money to NATO. That's one of your things. But we're not just we're supporting NATO. We prop them up. There's what is the percentage that is the NATO?
NATO would, yeah.
Versus the actual submission that we get. It's
insane. NATO wouldn't exist without the United States.
Yeah.
And somebody did a really a superb visual graph of what NATO has compared to what the United States has in aircraft and all these other things. And NATO has nothing compared to what we have. Like, what NATO countries subtract the United States. Subtracting the United States, NATO has nothing. Like, today's NATO would not be able to, it wouldn't last 2 weeks in a war against the former Soviet Union. They just wouldn't. They'd be overrun. And, not to mention the nuclear blackmail.
And for the New York Times editor, can you just repeat what NATO stands for?
The North American Treaty Organization.
Yeah, yep, the North American Treaty
North
Organization.
American Treaty Organization.
This is just,
North Atlantic?
yeah, it's North Atlantic. We were making fun of that shit from the article.
The five countries that have received more than 30% of all U.S. foreign aid since World War II are Israel, Egypt, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and South Korea, which I found interesting, especially with regard to Egypt, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. Like, South Korea is our ally, and a huge portion of the assistance we provide South Korea is military assistance that is required under treaty obligations. It's required under United States law, congressionally passed laws that require us to keep a military alliance with South Korea for stability in Asia, right? So you have, like, we would have to remove ourselves from an awful lot of agreements that we've signed in Asia, not just with South Korea, but a lot of other countries, with Japan, etc., before we'd even be allowed to, like, not provide South Korea anything. But Egypt, Afghanistan, then another big one was Syria. And I'm like,
So
what in the goddamn fuck are we doing giving money to Syria?
So
Syria killed 1 million of its own people.
yeah, Syria is very fucked up, and yeah, the Syrian civil war. Just anyone that hasn't looked into that should look into it. But does this mean the top two were Israel and Egypt, right?
Yeah.
They fought the 6-day war against each other. We were just fueling both sides of this war militarily? I
think the aid that we give Egypt is primarily at least during the 6-day war was humanitarian aid.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about military aid when you gave those stats.
No, it's towards according to USA Facts, the 5 countries that have received over 30% of all U.S. foreign aid, and that would include
total foreign aid. Got it.
Yeah, that would include military assistance.
Okay.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting point that you raised, because money is fungible. Even if we weren't sending, obviously, if we weren't sending humanitarian aid to Egypt, Egypt would have more money for weapons than they would have otherwise.
Exactly. So, that's money they could have been spending on their people for food. They can now spend on the military. So what's the real difference?
Yeah. Of course, we wouldn't. The United States wouldn't have had, any way of knowing. We wouldn't have advanced knowledge back then. With the technology compared to the technology that we have today, we wouldn't have had any idea that Egypt was prepared, was going to participate with the other Arab countries to invade Israel, right? Yep. Like we just didn't have that kind of satellite technology back then.
Yeah. It's a depressing topic, man. It's a depressing topic, but
so one thing just came out and I don't know if it would classify as humanitarian or not, but Trump just announced that they were going to be guiding stranded ships from through the Strait of Hormuz, uh, Navy blockade going straight through it. So does that qualify as a humanitarian?
No, I think that would qualify as military
Yeah.
assistance.
Seems like something we should do, though.
Yeah.
Seems like something we should do. Probably strategically in our advantage.
Well, Josh asked me this, said something last year. He gritted his teeth and made a cringy face about gas prices, and I didn't get a chance to tell you, Josh, that we need to finish this.
Yeah.
We need to finish this, and we need to finish it pretty soon.
Manifest destiny.
So
more countries are going to hate us if they got to spend more fucking money on their oil. That's just 2 + 2 = 4 type shit right there.
And not to mention, Cheeto didn't do he didn't do this war because to be popular, right? He did it because Iran was scheduled. Iran's accelerated missile program would have given them 8,000 ballistic missiles by next year, which is, that's not something that we would have been able to. You have to take that off the table. You can't let Iran have 8,000 ballistic missiles. You just can't, because then they can blackmail the region, right? What then could the United States do? Virtually nothing. If you got 8,000 ballistic missiles, you're talking about, if you think that this military operation for the last 8 weeks has been big, you have no idea what it would have been like, what it would be like to disarm Iran with 8,000 ballistic missiles, much less nuclear armed Iran. So he didn't do this to be popular. And I get, the hawks that are all on the side of this war, and I'm pretty much with them. Keep pushing back on the notion, because the left is basically, they've relegated themselves. They're deep into the whole slogan thing, like, another endless war, another illegal war, etc. The taglines: endless war, illegal war, war of choice, and that type of that. They're using that lexicon. These are the same people that said nothing after we've been in Afghanistan for 10 years, and we've only been doing this operation in Iran for 2 months. So, cut it out. But it needs to end. We need to figure out how to end it, and end it quick.
Humanitarian aid. To bring it full circle, that's the way to end it quick.
Yep.
So I mentioned earlier, before we cut out, that wait a minute, yeah, that a good example of humanitarian assistance, foreign aid from the United States saved millions of lives each year. For decades, these aid programs received bipartisan support and made a difference. Cutting them will cost lives. That's certainly true. It's not. The United States doesn't have in my opinion, the United States doesn't have a moral obligation to say, we are not the world's welfare department. It's not up to the United States to be a central bank that doles out welfare benefits to every country on earth, or to 100 countries. And however, moving further down on this, PREFAR, which is the HIV program that President Bush started, the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, better known as PREFAR, is considered one of history's most successful international aid initiatives, launched in 2003, PREFAR funds testing, antiretroviral therapy, prevention care in dozens and middle-income countries, focuses on the hardest hit regions of sub-Saharan Africa. In 2023 alone, over 20 million people globally received antiretroviral therapy through PREFAR. In many of these countries, HIV and AIDS disproportionately affects women, young women, and without treatment, the virus can be passed from the mother to the child during pregnancy, breastfeeding, etc. And it shows a graph here. Deaths averted by antiretroviral therapy. President Bush launched PREFAR, reflecting later on the moral imperative behind his decision. And he wrote in his memoir, I considered America a generous nation with a moral responsibility to do our part to help relieve poverty and despair. And I generally agree with that statement as it relates to the HIV/AIDS program in Africa. So I just want to put that out there.
But that's another example. This is something targeted. His program, he pretty much knew that this is going to be used for medicines to help people with AIDS, right?
Yes.
So it was built in. This is not an example of generic money being sent that can essentially be used for
not generic money.
Example earlier.
Correct. Absolutely.
Makes a difference. Makes a fucking big difference.
Makes a huge difference. Gentlemen, it's been cool. We're 41 minutes in. Does anybody have any last words? Scott, I want you and your lovely bride to have a great time at this concert you're going to. And I wish I were there.
Thank you so much.
I wish I were there with you. I looked at apartments in Pismo Beach, California the other day. I haven't been in Pismo Beach, which is about 3 hours away from you, 3.5 hours away from you. But I remember Pismo Beach being a beautiful little town. And I haven't been there for about 40 years. And I thought to myself, Pismo Beach, that would put me in, coastal Central California where the weather is perfect. It's gorgeous. It's away from Los Angeles. It's away from San Francisco. And I thought to myself, maybe I might entertain moving there. There's some employment close by. I could work at SpaceX in a GSOC or something like that. The drawback was 1-bedroom apartments in Pismo Beach, California are $4,196 a month.
Yeah, that's a pretty huge difference.
And I just like, holy fucking shit. When conservatives and libertarians say California has become literally unaffordable for the middle class, unless you, it certainly has.
That's crazy. I mean, right? That's a mansion here.
Yeah.
That mortgage payment is that's a 5,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
Josh, I don't know if I was hallucinating, but did Mark just say, Scott, do you have any last words, and then continued to talk for 5 minutes straight?
He did actually.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
A little bit, and that's normal, and you would expect it. So
I expect it, yeah.
Richard Nixon never did that.